the add-on to the Declaration of Rights and Man, the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, and really kind of give out the ideas of kind of Enlightenment ideals, such as equal rights, getting rid of slavery, everyone can vote, fair taxes, pretty much, and a lesser impact of the church, which was also very interesting. It really just, again, took power away from the king. This was all kind of known as the moderate phase of the revolution. It was led by the bourgeoisie. They were doing most of the negotiation and stoking the revolutionary flames. They just kind of wanted to receive a stronger voice, and they were actually getting quite close to achieving the rights in which they desired, which was a pretty big deal for them. And most of them, they were probably the most literate, smart, and well-educated people of the third estate, so it makes sense that they were the ones elected by their fellow third estaters to kind of go in the Estates General Assembly that we just talked about, and then they kind of took it from there and laid out some of their rights. All right, then the Radical Revolution began around 1792 to 1794. Then, of course, the Directory got to, and some of the Terror and all that. Then the Age of Napoleon, as we pretty much continue to guide you now through the French Revolution. All right, and this is kind of where we move from pretty much on paper stuff. We want rights. It did get a little violent with the storming of the Versailles Palace, which kind of had women, which pretty much made the royals come back to Paris, sit in a palace in Paris, and pretty much be under the watchful eye of their people. Kind of made them get a little bit closer while they were pretty much hanging out for a little bit, saying that they were down with the revolution, but they were really most certainly not down with the revolution, as the National Assembly kind of continued on in doing what they did on a day-to-day basis, kind of making laws, kind of solving issues and all that stuff, and trying to enforce the ideas of the revolution and the rights it gave on some of their people. All right, but things, as we know, were, again, about to get a lot more radical. And that time is about to begin. Yeah, we have some sound effects in here, too. How about that? By 1793, France was a country cracking from outside pressure and disintegrating from internal strain. Outside pressure meant war from Austria and Prussia, who France attacked first because they were worried about the royal family, a large portion of whom had congregated to Austria, coming and turning around and attacking them. So they were starting a war with Austria and its powerful ally Prussia, and it was not going too well for the French Revolution. So that really put a strain on people in France, because, especially in Paris, because they were like, what's going on? We could be in some serious trouble here. Then something kind of incited them to do some further, really quite crazy things. It was the Brunswick Manifesto. So it was a Prussian Duke of Brunswick. He threatened, if the king was harmed, he threatened the destruction of Paris, which was pretty severe and it was a really actually pretty credible threat, because Prussia was really bearing down on France. It was only miles away from the city's capital, and it also picked up some major ground in France. The French Revolutionary Army was not doing very well at all whatsoever, and that really freaked a lot of people out, angered and further motivated Paris citizens to end the power of Louis Austria alliance, because they're like, this is a little too far. I think there could be some major harm to come to the king. These revolutionaries are up to really no good. And then things got really crazy because of this Brunswick Manifesto and the really threat of an invasion with France. The September Massacres took place, and the September Massacres were pretty much as follows. A disturbance and worry over the high amount of political prisoners Robespierre had arrested was growing in Paris, and the fact that the oncoming Prussian army could come in and free these high number of prisoners, all these nobility members, led Parisians to pretty much storm the prison where these people were being kept and kill them almost all. 1,600 quote-unquote traitors to the revolution were left dead. It really looked bad for France, put a stain on their national reputation. They were viewed as just crazy barbaric savages in the way that they ripped these prisoners apart, like literally with their hands. It was really disgusting stuff. And then Robespierre took it a step further. He decides he's going to take control of the French government and put the king on trial. Wonder how that's going to go. They decide to kill him. That's a spoiler right there. So as that was going on, a committee for public safety, headed by Robespierre and the Radical Party, the Jacobins, took over the government. The committee claimed that their goal was to make sure that the enemies of the French Revolution did not roll back the gains that had been achieved. They decided that there was internal conspiracy in the government to sabotage revolutionary goals and called on their allies to take vengeance against those who wished to subvert the revolution. It was really quite a time of intense fear, worry, and radicalism among the people of France, where the Radical Party, the Jacobins, and the emergence of the sans-culottes, which is pretty much the peasant class, not really even the bourgeoisie anymore, who were more fell into the Girondist party, which is the moderate party at the time. They were getting more and more power. So there were some good things, though, the Committee of Public Safety was doing during the terror. I mean, some principles that they had were all right. He thought everyone should have all rights, everyone should be equal, men and women, and there was no slavery in some of the French colonies that they were considering. And now the sans-culottes, they were getting more rights. So they liked Robespierre's reign to a larger degree. But things got even a little bit more heated the next year, 1793. The National Convention, having heard the report of the Committee of Public Safety decrees, and this is the decree of the levée en masse, pretty much a draft. That's keeping the long story short here. It's from the decree of levée en masse in 1793, pretty much encouraging the war against France that was going on, and that really did stir up the war effort. And even at that time, some people in the French army were beginning to making gains on the oncoming Prussian army that we mentioned before. And there was also, again, a little bit kind of a Soviet law that was also passed around that time, as the Committee of Public Safety passed, quote, the decree against profiteers, unquote. The law accused profiteers in the countryside of hoarding or monopolizing grain in order to raise the price of bread. And those who, it was just pretty much all the chilling laws that the Committee of Public Safety did pass was the law of suspects. It went like this. It was essentially an order to
Yes, the sad, tragic day has come.
Persons
King Louis was executed.
So the revolutionaries decided the existence of the king, which didn't really make that much sense, and was kind of unnecessary, and would stop the continued thriving success of the revolution. I mean, it was kind of a necessary step, I guess you could say, but in my opinion, it probably should have taken September Massacres. It's like, Robespierre on a revolution, you got to get the action. I mean, maybe exile him, kill the king. The British on Napoleon, what they did to him. But it just doesn't seem exactly right that they kept him alive. It really was kind of an awkward situation. This is like, you're still around, but you're just kind of hanging. It's a little awkward, and you just kind of had to go. That's kind of your situation if you're King Louis, but you just don't really have any say in the government anymore. Soon after, the Marie Antoinette was also executed, and that kind of symbolized the end for the French monarchy, and kind of a real step of the terror of the real emboldenment of the terror, and the fact that the Committee of Public Safety, Robespierre, they had absolute power over the situation. So as the terror gained more and more power, the killings increased, and at a point where you could be killed for saying anything that was even remotely critical about the revolution, from being caught praying to saying that I don't really feel very well, I don't feel hungry. You could be turned in, executed, and all because you are not sufficiently loyal to the revolution, even though you completely supported the revolution. You were just a little hungry, or you just wanted to get back in touch with God. This was, again, not really a society that many people who created the French Revolution, or started the French Revolution, really set out to create, as the so-called moderate bourgeoisie had almost completely lost control over the government at this time. So, yeah, that's pretty much where the French Revolution was at. Things were getting very, very, very intense, and Robespierre, the guy who was supposedly called the Uncorruptible, he was so principled, and he started off as a pretty bourgeoisie type of dude, but he really got jarked by the end. He made an announcement to the Committee of Public Safety. The terror has been raging at this point, July 26th, 1794. It's been raging for over a year. The Committee of Public Safety has been rounding up all individuals who it deems to be enemies of the revolution, which is, they have a very shady definition of that, and sending them to the guillotine, most without even a trial. Now, Robespierre makes a landmark speech where he claims he has yet another batch of enemies of the revolution, and he's accusing other members of the government of conspiring against him and the revolution. This is a big step here and a massive deal for the future of the revolution. What will happen? Will all these people be executed, or will all these people who are now being accused of being on this mysterious list, no one even knows where they're on the list, but if they are on the list, which is completely unknown, there is a real chance and almost a near certainty that they will be executed. So that's not like it's not a very comfortable situation for them. Let's just put it that way. And the question is, what are they going to do? Keep in mind, some of these people are on the Committee of Public Safety, which has been, again, put together by Robespierre to kind of adjudicate these public crimes against the revolution, which could be, as I mentioned before, as simple as just not showing enough satisfaction of with the way things were going in the revolution. You didn't like the foreign wars. You didn't like the way things were going with the sharing of resources or whatever. If you criticize the revolution anyway, even saying you're a little hungry, you could be reported, adjudicated on by the Committee of Public Safety, and you could be sentenced to death. And now it looked like some of the people who have been on that committee and high-ranking people in the government could be meeting the very same fate after this incredibly groundbreaking and very controversial speech by Robespierre. And keep in mind, this is after he has executed all the Girondists, or moderates of the party, including one very popular person with the people called Danton, who was originally in charge of adding to the war effort. That's after he's executed all these people. So a lot of people think he's kind of off his rocker. So the next morning, right, he comes out, he reads the names of all these people, but all the people in the government, they do not let him get a word in. They shout him down, take him off to City Hall, where the next morning he decides to commit suicide along with his aides. And that pretty much spells the end for Robespierre and the terror. So, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up as after several very, very violent years, the constant executions, the constant questioning, are you for the revolution, are you not for the revolution, that is over. The radical phase of the revolution is over. That was led by the sans-culottes, that would just keep pushing and pushing and pushing to seemingly no end. That kind of took us out of that phase, this Committee of Public Safety. All that's over, and the question is, what kind of government will fill the shoes of Robespierre's reign of terror? The answer, as the Jacobins lost power from the left, the moderates gained power from the right, as the Directory by 1799 had established control. It was another kind of parliamentary body. Since the fall of Robespierre, the French public opinion has also shifted to the right with the new leaders. Kind of makes sense. People of all classes had grown weary of the terror and the radical reforms it sought to impose. In its place, the moderate upper-middle-class leaders of the National Convention drafted yet another new plan of government. This plan called for a conservative Republican constitution, which isn't such a bad idea for government. It was led, though, by only those who own property, which is not really what Robespierre would have wanted, but he just had a really bad way of going about it. So I guess when you suck and you kill people, your ideas don't really come to pass. So, yeah, the plan for a government led by only those that own property took shape. It called for a two-house legislature and executive body of 5 men known as the Directory. And so radical political clubs such as the Jacobin were closed. Churches were reopened, as some people, including Robespierre, thought the Christian faith system was contrary to the ideals of the revolution, so they literally closed it and got rid of all the clergy. It was a really rough time. Freedom of worship for all cults were granted. So I guess freedom of religion in a kind of creepy way. Economic restrictions were lifted in favor of more laissez-faire policies. Only those who could own property now could vote, and